here 30 something years ago. And living under a hay shed has heaps of advantages. I should say that the hay shed worked as a hay shed for about 40 years before this house was built underneath it. Now, one of the advantages of living under a hay shed roof is that when a bushfire comes along, it tends to pull the fire up and over the house rather than burning against the walls of the house. Also, this is a bit difficult to describe, but the walls of the house are not at the edges of the hay shed roof. So they're about 4 meters in from where you'd normally expect to find the walls of a house. This is magnificent when a bushfire goes over, because it means you've got that 4 meters of space in which to fight the fire, rather than have the fire able to immediately access the walls on the outside of the house and burn it, if that makes sense. Another value of having lots of space under cover but outside the house is that you can keep all sorts of things there, so without them cluttering your house. So for instance, a whole lot of my Fowler's Kilner jars full of fruit are out there. Normally our place is very dry, and we often get skiffs of rain, so not a good downpour, but just almost a passing shower. Now, if you have a really big roof and you have just a skiff of rain, your tanks fill up all the same. So we think that that's a huge advantage, and it will probably become a greater advantage as time goes by. So that was why we used to say that if the house ever burned down, the first thing we'd do would be put up a hay shed and then build a house under it. It's like living under a giant umbrella in summer. So only at the very height of summer, just for an hour in the morning, does one of the walls get hit by direct sunlight. The rest of the time, without us doing anything else, the hay shed protects us from the sun, and that's becoming, of course, increasingly a valuable thing. And some people say to us, well, isn't it dark in winter? Well, we're very outdoor people, so when it's light, we tend to be outside, working outside, so we're in the light. And we very rarely spend time during daylight indoors. But it's not a dark house. We certainly don't put lights on during the day normally. So yeah, another huge advantage of the great big roof. We love it. Let me say that the garden feeds Win and me completely all year round, and we are big vegetable eaters. And nobody, very rarely would I forget to give anybody something out of the garden when they come and visit, or when I go and visit them. I also generally don't preserve my vegetables. I found that vegetables, you can actually grow vegetables through the whole year, which give you a complete complement of vegetables and are pleasant to eat, because all year round the veggie garden produces beautiful fresh stuff. And you know, the advantage of that is that it makes you, eating seasonally is that you work up an appetite for things. So it's a great joy to eat seasonally, because you work up sort of a visceral appetite for the taste of particular vegetables that you haven't had for 6 months or so.
What are you doing to create this wonderful abundance in your vegetable garden?
Where my veggie garden is now was a paddock when we first moved here 37 years ago. And the soil, the top soil, would have been between 1 centimetre and 1 inch deep, and very denatured soil. So it was like a quagmire in winter, because it used to rain then, and like bricks in summer, and totally no humus through it. That's been compost, mulch. We've, in the last 3 years, we've discovered biochar, and we think that that's really helping. What I particularly appreciate about biochar is it helps retain moisture, because shortage of water is always going to be the problem here. We have 4 dams, and we're really stingy with our water use. We really try to make every drop of water work. And And we're always, I'm always anxious about the water. And I mean, droughts are going to get worse, not better. So if you work carbon biochar into your soil, it retains moisture. It's one of the best moisture retaining things you can add to your soil. And for that reason, we think the biochar is wonderful. I do preserve fruit because if you think about it, fruit from deciduous trees, I mean, I've extended the season, I think, as far as our local climate allows, but we really don't get any fruit off trees until about Christmas because we have very late frosts here. We're really quite high. But on the other end of the season, it's fully July before I pick my Lady Williams apples, the last of the apples. And then we go obviously into the citrus harvest. But we bottle and a little bit freeze, not much freezing, and dry fruit in all sorts of ways, and pickle it and preserve it in alcohol and so on. And so we have lots of lovely fruit all through the off season. When I was planning it, I was very careful for each variety to choose an early bearing tree, a mid-season tree, and a late season tree. And for instance, our peach harvest, our first peaches are ready. Oh, well, they're one of the earliest fruits. So the Anzacs are ready here about Christmas time. And my very last, which is a cling cooking peach, we take off the tree about late May. So if you think about it, that's 6 months where we have peaches of one kind or another. We have one apple tree that has 12 different varieties on it. It's fun things you can do with grafting. And the difference between varieties is absolutely amazing. And the reason for doing all these varieties, not just fun, it's also that some varieties have got resistance to frost. Some are more able to pollinate in spite of the rain. Some of them are more resistant to different bugs or infestations. Others of them do better even on very little watering, and so on. So we have about 140 varieties. It'd be lovely if we could have 140 trees, but we certainly don't have enough water for 140 trees. So we've got about 70 deciduous trees, not counting the citrus orchard, and we've got about 140 varieties. It's fabulous to have a garden like that and to be able to be generous with produce, because I mean, nature is generous with us. So it's nice to be able to pass that generosity on to people. But we were early adopters. So we put it up in 2005. And we're still receiving 68 cents per kilowatt hour for our electricity. So this means that we have a nest egg sitting with our electricity provider because we're always in credit. And we remain in credit. So we haven't paid an electricity bill since 2005. The other point I should make is that we're also very miserly, thrifty is a better word, with our electricity. So we do turn off lights. We have made sure that the fridge is, it's a best frost. It's one with the very lowest carbon footprint that you can get. Composting toilet is absolutely wonderful. It used to grieve me before when we used a waterborne toilet. I couldn't bear the waste of those good nutrients going out. When manure comes out of you, it's a really good product. Okay, it's got all sorts of nutrients and so on. Once you mix it with water, it becomes waste and it becomes a problem to get rid of in sewage sludge. But if you use a composting toilet, all the nutrients that you poo out a year later are back around your fruit trees growing more fruit. So it's an absolutely wonderful cycle, and it uses no water. As I said to you, we're very water conscious here, and every time I don't flush a toilet, I feel happy. But we live a very rich and comfortable life.